God of War, Ragnarok scores the second highest rating for 2022. God of War, Ragnarok has been hyped as one of the contenders for Game of the Year long before it was even released. We can't blame fans as its predecessor was an epic game. So far, God of War, Ragnarok has not disappointed critics who've had a chance to get their hands on the game early. After the review embargo lifted, critics have had positive things to say and they're loving the game. The God of War sequel received universal acclaim from reviews on Metacritic with a score of 94. This gives it the second highest game rating from critics this year, just behind Elden Ring. Coincidentally, both God of War, Ragnarok and Elden Ring are contenders for Game of the Year at the Game Awards on December 8. It looks like the race this year will be tighter than the previous years. But it will be a two-horse race between the action-adventure games. Choosing to delay God of War, Ragnarok was the right move for Santa Monica Studio. The game is as polished as one could ask for. It has so far lived up to the gaudy expectations that many fans had. Amazingly, Santa Monica Studio managed to build an even better game than 2018's God of War. The original set the bar so high that even the most die-hard fans find it hard to believe that the sequel could surpass it. But the developers have delivered a truly impressive game. The game has already gone gold before its release. God of War, Ragnarok will be released on November 9, 2022, on PS4 and PS5. The story so far. The trailer for Ragnarok released in September confirms that the game takes place a few years after the events of 2018's God of War. The freezing winds of Fimbulwinter have come to Midgard, making survival for Kratos, Atreus, and Mimir in the Norse wilds even more challenging than before, Sony said in a blog post. While the last game built an enormous amount of trust and understanding between father and son, there is still a great deal of complexity in their interactions, especially after the revelation of Atreus' giant heritage and the hidden prophecy only Kratos saw. In Ragnarok, Atreus is desperately curious, according to Sony. Like most young people, he wants to understand who he is more than anything. In this case, he wants to understand who he could be. The mystery of Loki's role in the upcoming conflict is something that Atreus cannot let go of. He wants to keep his family safe, but Atreus also doesn't want to stand by and do nothing while conflict consumes the Nine Realms. As for Kratos, Sony says he is intent on helping to spare Atreus from the bloody lessons he learned from his conflict with gods. He wants to keep his son safe, above all, and their confrontation with Baldur has vindicated the belief that only tragedy will come from further entanglements with the Aesir, reads a line from the game's description. Together, Kratos and Atreus will have to make a choice about which path they will take. Whatever they choose will define the fate of all those living in the Nine Realms as Ragnarok approaches. God of War Ragnarok story. The God of War Ragnarok reveal trailer gave us a good idea of what to expect from the story. Years have passed since the end of 2018's God of War, evidenced by an older, more confident Atreus whose giant genes are starting to show. Together, father and son must face the impending Ragnarok, the legendary Norse version of an apocalypse facing the enemies they made in God of War like Freya, new ones like Thor, and more as Kratos wrestles with his son's rebellious streak and his knowledge of who Atreus really is. The story will take place across the Nine Realms. You only saw 6 in God of War, adding Vanaheim, Svartalfheim, and Asgard to the mix. The trailer also introduces some intriguing new characters like Angrboda, who developer Sony Santa Monica has said is one of the last remaining giants. That big guy at the end? That's Tyr, son of Odin, half-brother of Thor and Baldur, but is imprisoned by his own father and so will likely to want to settle the score with Daddy. Story details appeared in a PlayStation Store listing description for God of War Ragnarok. Most notably, it once again reiterates that we'll be visiting all 9 realms as Kratos and Atreus. Fimbulwinter is well underway. Kratos and Atreus must journey to each of the 9 realms in search of answers as Asgardian forces prepare for a prophesied battle that will end the world, the description reads. Along the way, they will explore stunning, mythical landscapes, and face fearsome enemies in the form of Norse gods and monsters. The threat of Ragnarok grows ever closer. Kratos and Atreus must choose between their own safety and the safety of the realms. Will God of War, Ragnarok win the Game of the Year award?